Warfare. Warfare rarely fluctuates. Years after the atomic and biological war that nearly destroyed humanity, a few rose up. A few made a difference in the wastelands. This is their legacy. Thanks to the work of the few, the Horde and their collaborators were unable to continue their conquest of the Commonwealth. Stopped at the Mississippi River by those few and their allies that united together, an uneasy standoff was reached until the galactic powers were able to intervene and eventually broker a peace. Thanks to their efforts, thousands of lives were spared in what could have easily been a bloody crossing in a long, violent war. Due to the influence of the new planetary governor, Joe Mecksmith, and the left hand of the Empress, Gabriel, the standoff brokered by the few was solidified into an armistice. While some concessions had to be made, including the creation of several factions that directly report to the planetary governor, thanks to the work of the few, a victory was possible. And, at least for a time, there was peace. The Horde, under the Khan, were able to keep much of their influence, subject to the restrictions of the new planetary governor. While not a perfect solution, it turned a battle of blood and servitude into one of politics and maneuvering. As a result, thousands of lives were likely saved, and the quality of life for many at the bottom was improved. While the Horde was occasionally a thorn in the governor's side, the probability of destabilization if they went to war was too great to risk, at least for now. Thanks to the preservation of men like Mr. James and the influence of Ricky, the Horde would be, at least somewhat shaped, into a more reasonable faction. The Wyverns, or Wasteland Vagabonds, in part due to the leadership of those whom the few spared, would eventually break free from the Horde and once again form their own independent faction. Years later, with the planet united and even faster transportation available, they would roam further than ever before. This diminished their political influence, but allowed them to take their newfound honor to other places. In time, they would leave the planet, roaming the galaxy as occasionally helpful vagabonds. The Lake Runners would narrowly avoid destruction several more times thanks to the cunning of their leader, Sun Mang, before finally making peace. Eventually, they would reach out to the stars, offering their services in battle in far-off places, hoping to make a new name for themselves. The Southside Walkers, while once a terrifying presence to the few, would eat themselves alive from the inside, quite literally. The corruption that had slowly made its way into their ranks was discovered too late. Once found out, they were eradicated. Only a few ex-members survived. The Fairweather Bandits of Mayfield should have hedged their bets better. Having provided minimal support to the Horde, and being on less than good terms with the few, made them a rather inconsequential player in the aftermath. Still a local force, their influence paled in the grand scheme of things. The Flesh Pit clan and the remnants of Paducah fared poorly. While initially able to broker a peace and even garner some influence, they were eventually eradicated by an elite force. The captives and other victims were set free, while some of the survivors, if they could be called that, would serve as reminders of the atrocities committed by their members. Some attribute their destruction to the few, others to Gabriel. In any case, now only scattered remnants remain. As for the allies and confederates of the few, many of them would go on to influence the planet and beyond. Others would not. The Knights of Bronze, thanks to the influence, loyalty, and leadership of the few, would eventually throw their full weight behind the technologically capable galactic governor. With the realization that their technology was now quite dated, and that the governor was their long-lost cousin, there was no reason to do otherwise. They would serve as the planet's elite defense force, as well as help advance the planet technologically. More than a few would eventually leave planet to aid in other galactic affairs. The Republic, acknowledging the need for unified government, mixed with the wisdom of allowing the various factions some autonomy, some vote, would throw their weight in behind the new planetary governor. In time, their forces would become the planet's military force, and their territories the template for many of the other regions. The city of Merville maintained its autonomy despite its size. In time, they would consent to governorship under the Republic, but only after the Knights of Bronze shifted their focus away from such matters. Eventually, Merville became a vast and sprawling city, and would later become the capital and seat for the planetary governor. The Order of Sami was later absorbed into the capital city and maintained much autonomy as a historic center and religious sanctuary. To this day, it remains a sanctuary for knowledge, history, and remembering the past, as well as the heroes that fought for it. The Children of the Damned, thanks to the close relationships brokered by Constantine and the others, would eventually fall into the fold. In time, their beliefs would shift from religious to reverent. However, their dedication to ensuring that technology would never again destroy the planet would survive, long after the planet was restored from the hellish nightmare it had endured. Rebel purity would eventually fade away. Some of the less extreme members would join the Republic and the planetary governor, while others, some of the autonomous factions, while many simply disappeared into obscurity. The Denim Boys would similarly fade away and be absorbed into Merville. Violet's knives, while useful in the war, lacked the cohesion to maintain themselves in a changing political landscape. While they maintained some local power, due to run-ins with the law, the remnants mostly operate behind the scenes, busying themselves with small-time crime. The Tri-City Militia threw their lot in with the Republic thanks to their support in the war. The overlapping influence of its members ended up being one of the factors in Merville's decision to later join the Republic. The station, while incredibly important before and during the war, saw its prominence fade after restoration of power at the dam and the removal of the city's gang influences. While still a hub of trade, as well as questionable activities, slavery and the chains of progress, as well as several other activities, were eventually banned. As for the UWG, it's rumored they quietly disappeared, fading into the background. Others believe they worked their way into positions of influence among the new planetary leadership, waiting for the next big event to unfold. If history's any indicator, it won't take long to find out. As for the Temple of the Fallen, they, along with Menadone, through the help of the few, would make peace with Dr. Zerov and his minions. Together, though fulfilling quite different roles, would help in restoring and repairing damage to the planet caused by the war. And as for me, well, my personality was copied, ensuring that this treasure of robotic, ingenious creativity would not only never be lost, but also shared with billions among the stars. Forever. And ever. And ever. And yeah, like, the Growers Association would be, like, totally all about that freedom, man. But no raiders? That was pretty cool, too. The governor and the Republic, I guess they're alright. Just don't, like, come over unannounced. You know what I mean? The ghouls posed a problem for the new government. Technically stable, they could not ignore the strong possibility that their condition arose from the zombie virus. Sadly, in time, their ability to travel, especially off-planet, was greatly restricted. The fact that ghouls could turn savage didn't help matters. While some advocates, like the DJ Brogan, would speak out for them, only so much could be done. Mutants faced a similar fate, more so due to violent tendencies. While some would adapt to society, others would form their own secluded groups, and more than a few would turn to crime. Eventually, a small number of both would make their way off-planet. As for the one, there is rumor he survived his fourth execution.
though no further evidence for this has been found. Many argue that he survives in all of us, thanks to the biological contamination caused by the war. His influence, shattered by the few, helped to ensure the planet's safety, at least for now. As for Skinny Fingers is always watching you.
Some of you are probably wondering what happened to me and my grandfather. I don't know why that big mutant, that scary IT guy, tried to make fun of us and scare us. But I've started an anti-bullying campaign with the new government to make sure that'll never happen to anyone ever again.
Jorza spent some time adapting to the new level of off-world technology. He stayed planet-side for a little while before applying his trades off-world, leaving in what would later be seen as a rush. As to why, no one is certain, and he's not around to ask. Some rumors say he was searching out an entity simply known as Dual Brain, rumored to be the epitome in robotic technology.
Dune. Dune would eventually become the planetary medical advisor, until he committed some social faux pas due to new galactic HR requirements. He later retrained as a shuttle pilot, recertified as a field medic, and joined up with the Galactic Army, where he still serves.
As a small-time merchant, I never really thought I'd make it big. Maybe if I worked hard, I could eventually make enough money to retire with a decent living. Well, it was several years back I was down on my luck. A couple of, I guess you could call them adventurers, had some pity on me, or maybe it was a joke. Told me about some possible loot. Something not worth their time. Well, as it turns out, hidden amongst the rubble and other scrap, there was some artwork. Post-war, we learned it was from a feller known as Rembrandt. Well, to make a long story short, after everything settled, I was able to sell that artwork for some of its pre-war value. Some of the very few surviving artwork pieces from a variety of artists. I'm not sure if they did it out of the kindness of their heart, and honestly, I think they probably thought it was junk, not worth their time. In any case, I'm grateful, and I was able to make something out of myself. Something pretty big.
As far as the few, the heroes, not all is known about where they went or what they did. But we do know a few things. Ricky would rise in the ranks of leadership in the Knights of Bronze, and eventually worked for the planetary governor as both diplomat and strategic advisor. Thanks to the relationship she built, the peace that was brokered lasted for quite some time, and several future conflicts were avoided. In time, she was offered a position off-world, commanding an elite force of Valkyrie for a long-term, top-secret mission under the command of the left hand of the Empress. Other than training elite warriors, no one is quite sure what she is doing, other than the fact that it's important and could well affect the entire galaxy. Samson and Cheryl spent much of their time reforming the Hounds and other wasteland groups. Continually being offered positions of leadership, Samson would eventually, albeit reluctantly, accept a position, to which he would quickly grow weary. In time, he and his wife would go off-world with a select set of loyalists to start a monastery dedicated to self-perfection and combat techniques focused on fighting when grossly outnumbered. It's rumored he has several children, some of whom followed in his footsteps. After becoming the second man to break a deal with the devil, Constantine and Noel gathered up the resources, purchased a crazy fast ship, and set off to explore the galaxy. It's rumored he finally found liquor so strong he could barely drink it, but he still drank it. Rumor has it he purposely faded into obscurity after losing his first and only quick-draw duel, then settled down with Noel, opened up his own pub, and had several children. Others think he made a fortune in his escapades and paid the man to defeat him, so he would no longer be bothered. It's also rumored he got his old face back. So other than a few Earthers, who's to know? As the first man in recent history known to have successfully and repeatedly cheated the devil, Big Blue spent his time continuing to consolidate his power and influence, first on planet, then later expanding off-world. Rumored to have more than a few peculiar associates, he eventually became a powerful real estate mogul,
as well as an influential kingpin among the aliens known as the Marok, a species known galaxy-wide for their expansive underworld authority. It is rumored his influence and power have expanded to include more than a few systems, though as the years go by, his name slowly faded into obscurity. Some say, by design. Idaho Jones eventually expanded his research from pre-war artifacts to galactic ones, serving as both a researcher and investigator. Thanks to his uncanny ability to take risks and survive, he quickly grew through the ranks, and would later work for a variety of antiquities collectors